and welcome to From Our Perspective, two therapist moms and a mic. I'm Claudia Glassman.
And I'm Katie Truax. And we have what we think is going to be an exciting topic today. We're going to try to discuss this. Well, should we even try to discuss it without sounding like two old people, or should we just embrace being two old people discussing this topic?
I think we're going to sound like what we sound like. I don't know if we can avoid it. So,
okay, so we're talking today about entitlement,
yes.
which is a hot button, similar to the topic we discussed last week, which was narcissism. And the two things are perhaps a little bit related. One might spin off into the other, but they're different. And so we're going to talk to you today about what entitlement means, how it shows up in the world. You'll probably get a little bit of our feelings on the topic and maybe where it comes from a little bit. We can pontificate. I like that word today. I don't know if we ever have any concrete answers, although never. So we'll just chat.
I really think there's just no concrete answers to a lot of things.
That's true.
Yeah. Things
Although,
are complicated.
when I was doing my exercises today on my deck, I did them without my sunglasses on because of what you told me today about.
I don't know if it's true.
Do you want to share with our readers as a little tidbit of useful knowledge that may or may not be true?
I have no idea if this is true. So what I had shared with you in a message, I think it was yesterday's message, is that I had heard somewhere, and it makes sense to me, but I, again, disclaimer, have no idea if this is true or complete bullshit. But it's one of those things where you're like, maybe could be true. So it was about sunburn, right? And there was obviously the more seed oils you consume, right, the more likely you are to burn, which I think diet can impact things. So, okay. But the second thing was that wearing sunglasses can lead you to burn sooner because your eyes get signaled to produce more melanin, which would then protect you from burning. But if you're wearing sunglasses, it's like your eyes are thinking it's not as bright and they're not getting the signal from the sun. I have no idea if this is true, but you tried it. And what did you think?
I mean, I'm not sunburned.
But were you going to be anyway?
Probably not.
I'll let you all know how I fare this summer.
Here you go. That's going to be your SPF protection is no sunglasses.
Yeah. And I told you in the message, I did give you the disclaimer too, is this could be total bullshit. I have no idea, but this is what I heard. And I have done no research on this. I have not even Googled it at a very minimum. So I don't even know where I stumbled across this little nugget of information, but it was like, I mean, could make sense to me.
I love it. I mean, sure, right? I mean, yes. We should probably caveat that we're not dermatologists or
doctors, or and that I, have no idea if this is true or complete fiction. So, but Katie tried it because she was willing to trust in the rumors I hear. She's like, let me see.
You're my primary source of news and information, so use it wisely.
It may or may not be accurate, but I did tell you I was not sure of any of the facts behind this or any of the research, or if anyone's ever actually even studied this or looked into it. I have no idea. It is heard, and I was like, interesting.
I love it. Okay, back to entitlement. So how do we get on that topic? The fact that nothing that we tell you is going to be factual.
Just
we will define this based on Google, who is, of course, absolutely fact-based. All right. So Google says entitlement is, well, there's two definitions, right? One is kind of the way that it seems to me this term has been like used for a long time and maybe rightly used, right? Or correctly used. The fact of having a right to something, like inalienable rights that might be granted by law. This is a legal framework of society, so forth, so on.
That's not the entitlement we're talking about, people.
That's not what we're talking about. Okay, so in contrast to, what Google has added to that, which is the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. So inherently meaning just by the virtue of being, you deserve something, or that you deserve treatment that is special, being different from the
Everyone.
norm or
Mhm.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a topic that you had on the list.
Mm-hmm.
You want to dive into what you're noticing or what you're seeing and why that comes up so much for you? But again, it's not just you, right? I mean, I hear it
Yeah.
a lot.
It's
Yeah.
not just me. I think I see it um, more and more when I interface kind of in the customer service sphere.
Mhm.
Um, so, in addition to being a clinician, right, I also do most of the administrative stuff for our clinic. We have a pretty small clinic. It's just Rob and I, and we have an addictions professional, and we have a couple of massage therapists who practice with us. But we don't have we don't take insurance, so it's all self pay. So we don't have the volume to need like a front desk person. So most client contact comes through me. Things like scheduling, rescheduling, so forth and so on. And as we've mentioned before, I have a hobby that became a secondary business, which is kind of taking over my life in a fun way, but as an event planner, right? So I run an event planning company that started out doing mostly kind of high end beach events, luxury beach picnics and bonfires, but is growing and has grown into off beach events too, like showers and birthday parties and holiday gatherings. We just did a fun. Okay, I've heard you say this word differently. I thought it was B'nai Mitzvah. Is it Bay Mitzvah? Say it. How do you say it?
I have no idea.
No. Okay, fine.
I had to,
Did you
I had
pull it up?
to ask about it too. I don't know.
Okay, but essentially a mitzvah. It's
A
B
double mitzvah.
N A I, and it's for a sibling pair, a bar and bat
And a bow.
mitzvah
Yeah.
combination. Yeah. So anyway, so in that sector, right? So in both sectors of customer service, whether it's the healthcare industry or the event industry, I see clients and patients demonstrating this type of behavior like all the time in many, many, many different ways where they either want something. Okay, I get this a lot. I get people wanting oh, this is interesting. This might open up a can of worms. I get influencers asking for free events all the time.
Hmm.
I get people wanting me to change my cancellation policies for them in both sectors. I get people wanting to oh, stay over their given allotted time um, kind of windows, right? So we have time windows for both clinical services as well as for events, and people kind of some tend to want to bulldoze right through that. I have people sign contracts and decide they're going to go back on what they have signed for and want to break the rules for things. Yeah, it's just a really interesting phenomenon. I'm sure I must have some story in mind when I put this on the list, but nothing really recent has happened that I can think of. Have you had a situation recently that you can think of where you've had like a firsthand occurrence with this?
No, it's interesting. I
Hmm.
haven't, but some of it is, I think it's that customer service consumer space
Hmm.
that brings it out in people. And I hear a lot of people talk about entitlement as like a generational shortcoming. Like the
Yeah.
younger generation feels so entitled. And actually, as you're describing and thinking about my own world, some of the people that exhibit this behavior, specifically in the customer service realm, are not young people.
Mhm.
They are
Yeah.
my age demographic and older. But I think that's created by the way we do customer service, specifically in this country, right? I would love to hear internationally if it's the same thing. where
Yeah.
customer service is not the customer's always right and just eat the cost or suck it up because they're complaining too much and just let them have it, right? But I see it a lot in that space. But I
Customer
don't
service.
see it in my day to day in the same way.
Mhm.
And I think, again, I hear about it from people talking about younger generations. They feel so entitled. But I would also argue, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, like, don't you feel like every generation has that critique of the younger generation?
I think there's some critique of the younger generation for sure. I don't know if it's the same one or not. Have you
I mean,
heard that
yeah.
as we've aged? Kind of have do you remember people saying that about our generation?
No, because they don't say it to your face. But I remember feeling entitled. I remember feeling entitled, and I don't think in a obnoxious, demanding way, but I remember graduating college being like, I did all this and I get a crap job with shit pay, and like, what? I feel like I should get more than that, right? And did I complain to anyone but my friends about it? No, but I remember like internally feeling like I earned more.
Mhm.
I would argue the world was probably like, but you didn't.
Right.
You know, but I remember feeling a little bit entitled. And
Okay.
I don't think it was like in a bratty, demanding way, but like in an internal discomfort of like, huh, I did all that and here
Yeah.
I am.
Right.
And like friends of mine that didn't go to college are actually probably doing better than I am. Like, what the hell? Like, I did feel some level of entitlement. Like, I remember, just like it seemed to be more like career based until I did a 180 and, became a therapist. That's like a whole nother story. But I did feel like maybe I should be further, maybe I should be
Mhm.
more advanced, maybe I was capable of more than people were giving to me.
Yeah.
But in the work world, I had earned nothing. You know what I mean? Like I showed up.
Yeah.
Um, so I do remember feeling that way. So when an older generation is like the kids graduating today, I hear this now from probably our age demographic, right? The kids graduating, they feel so entitled. They only
Mm.
want to work for X amount of money. They only want to, yeah, I remember feeling that way years ago, right? Like I didn't feel differently about that. I felt the same way. So like, is that a generational entitlement? Is it worse? Or
Right.
is that just where everyone at 22 to 25 is at? And then we get a reality check and we ground ourselves a little bit and get on board with like the process.
Yeah, that's really interesting because as I'm listening to you talk, two things are coming up for me. One is that expands or stretches my mind's thinking about that definition of entitlement, right? Because when you're describing that, you're describing, okay, I went through a fairly rigorous training process, right, to become an employee, right, to go into the workforce. I can't remember what was your degree in initially.
Business.
Okay, but which that's hard to because yes, exactly. What does that actually tangibly get you? But yeah, so you went through a 4-year training program, right, to make you a business professional. Like that's what, at least back then, right, we were kind of led to believe. And we'll talk hopefully about the intergenerational dynamics of this, but I think that that was the case for our parents generation, right?
Mm.
Well, where you could go to school, get a 4-year degree, and then you were ready to go into whatever that said, like whatever your degree said that you had been trained in, you got a job in that, right? So I don't know if that feels like entitlement to me. It feels like you went through you what's the word about the rope? What's the thing about the ropes? You went through the ropes. That's not how it goes.
No, I don't know. Yes. Okay. So because I did the thing they said I needed to do to get there, but I didn't. I didn't prove myself at a job. I got my diploma and was like, what am I CEO? I mean, I wasn't that dramatic about it, but like kind of, because what I
Okay.
didn't have is perspective,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And I didn't have the knowledge of, lovely what you did. but it takes more than that.
Yeah. This is a start.
This is
This
the
is year
start.
one. Yes.
This
Well,
it's
right.
the same way when you I mean, I don't know, like, you had a different entry into the therapy world than I did, but, I mean, my first job was horrible in this field, to the point where I almost quit the entire field, you know? But by that point, having, worked in the work world a little bit before going back to grad school and kinda doing this thing, I had s I, at that point, understood you have to do the grunt work to get the things you wanna get.
Mhm.
And that this will be temporary until you move along, but it was no different in our field.
I have a question for you.
Hmm.
Did you wait tables?
I bartended.
Okay. So I question, right? Because I did not have that experience. I feel very much looking back like I have always been very humble when it comes to my place in the pecking order. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me tell you what I mean by that. Like every job I've ever had working for somebody else, I feel like I've been ready and willing to earn my stripes. The thing with the ropes is going to come to me. And now as an entrepreneur, there's certain more so in the event planning realm, like we do with the beach events, we have a lot of interaction with county officials, right? County code enforcement and the fire department. And I am very much like bow down to you. Like you are the boss of me. Whatever you say, whatever the rule is, I'm gonna follow it. Like I'm not gonna buck the rules. I'm not gonna argue with the rules. I'm not gonna tell you that I don't like your rules. I'm just gonna follow the rules because you are the boss of the whole damn town. So I'm gonna do what you say, right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily an attitude that I see every person in a similar role as mine adopting, right? So
Mhm.
I question, like, where did I get that from? And the only thing I can think of was that I started in the food and beverage industry really early on. Like, I started waiting tables at like a shit restaurant. I shouldn't say that. It wasn't a shit restaurant. I started waiting tables at Lone Star Steakhouse and Saloon in Durham, North Carolina. And it was like a steakhouse, man. Like I don't even know if they have Lone Stars anymore, but they have like Longhorns or like a Texas Roadhouse. It was that kind of a vibe. It wasn't far from my house. It seemed like a kind of nice, like entry level,
Yeah.
position where you didn't have to be super duper. It wasn't like fine dining by any means, but you could make pretty good money as like a 16, 17-year-old, right? But
Mhm.
like you started out as a hostess and then you got a little bit of okay, you can have a table or two tables and then you get more and then if you're good you get more tables and then from there you work up to like ooh, let me go into the next tier of the restaurant industry, right? And then okay, I did a little stint in fine dining. I just preferred to bump it down. I think what I ended spending most of my career with through grad school was what they called upscale casual. um, Another steakhouse, but just like a higher kind of caliber, if you will. But like it was very hierarchical. It was like you had to, God, what is the thing about the ropes? Climb the ropes, earn, I don't know, earn
Learn
your
the
stripes.
ropes.
I don't know. Learn the ropes. You had to learn the ropes. You had to earn your stripes. All these things, right? Pay your dues. And like if you were good, you got a good section and you made a lot of money. And if you weren't any good, you didn't.
Yeah.
And it took time and it took like proving yourself and it took that like humility. Like you couldn't come in right off the bat and be like, I want the best section, thank you very much, or I want the best customers, I want the 10 top right now, or I want to bartend. Like you had to really like earn that,
Mhm.
and you could lose it quickly, man. If you screwed up, like you got knocked down a rung pretty
Yeah.
fast. You got the
Yeah.
shit section in the back.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is around the messaging you get, and I think we've got these catchphrases like you can be anything you want to be. And that's true, but you probably have to do a lot of work, put a lot of effort in,
Right,
and it doesn't mean it comes easy.
right.
But I think I was already a little bit older in my childhood when people started touting that phrase, right? But it was like nobody had the second part. You can do anything you want. I guess if you put your mind to it was the thing, right? But no, sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's the crappy job for 2 years before you get the thing you wanted, right? Um,
Right.
my generation, like I was not part of the everyone gets a trophy. If you lost and you sucked, you lost and you sucked, and the other people got trophies. We didn't get t-shirts. We got no memorabilia of the effort we put in other than a loss, right? Um,
Yeah.
that does humble you. And that does make you very aware that you're going to win some, lose some, and you're not going to be the best at everything. So I do think this kind of like, I don't know if a coddling's the right word, but coddling of emotions
Mm-hmm.
may have hindered some of our younger generations, and not to their fault, right? It's fair. Everyone gets a trophy because you participated. The winners get a trophy, the losers get a trophy. We all get a trophy because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. But you're
Does the
going to
loser
grow up and get your feelings hurt.
right? I'm curious. Do the losers trophies say like loser? I
No,
mean, like,
no. Hey,
how does that actually manifest? Because I'm not a sports person. My kid's not a
it's
sports kid.
usually just like the whatever the place you're doing the sports through, right? And it'll be like, it's like a participation trophy, you know? But I don't think that alone is what's going to create entitled people, right? I was actually just at the move up ceremony at my
Mhm.
kid's school, which is a private school. And these are, little third graders. And what I was struck by is in a majority of their speeches, these kids thanked their parents for making sacrifices to pay for the school.
Mhm. Yeah, love
I want to
that.
thank my parents for paying for the school, for making sacrifices to pay for the school. Now, I don't know what these parents are saying at their home, right? But like, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know, right? Like, I was really moved by it. That's not a group of entitled kids. That's a bunch of kids that recognize that this cost money and that
Mhm.
someone in their family is making a sacrifice to afford
Right.
this luxury.
Mhm.
And the fact that like a number of them like wrote it in their little, like graduation move up speech was like really struck me. And I'm like, and I kind of, I didn't know we were going to talk about this a couple hours ago because we kind of game time decisioned it. But I was sitting in there thinking, like, right, we complain that these kids are entitled. And maybe in certain ways they are. Like, I do think I had an entitlement in certain ways. And not that I acted on it, because I also did, like, I'm a really hard employee and I work hard. But internally, I had thoughts of, what the fuck? I deserve more. I still did the thing.
Made for more.
But I'm like, this isn't right. Um, but I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, we complain about these younger generations and how entitled they are. And yet a majority of these kids are taking the time to thank their parents for funding their education at, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Okay, so let's talk for a second about the intergenerational dynamics here. And then I do want to come back to the workplace, but
Yeah.
I had a client on my couch. I think I'm attributing this comment to the right client. I could be wrong. If I am, this client's, I want to say roughly 50, give or take a few. She might be, I don't think she's over, but she might be a couple years under, close to 50. Let's just roughly say 50. And
Oh, I guess it does matter. Yeah.
we're talking about this, right? And she has, if I'm thinking of the right person, she has three children. They're all girls and they're all teenagers of different ages. And what she was saying was this. She said, our generation, meaning hers and mine, she said it was really the first generation where our parents went back, or like our moms, right, went back to work.
Mm.
Okay. Like I was a child of the 80s. So if she's 50, she was a child 70s to 80s, right? And then what happened is because moms went back to work or went to work, yes, there was like this latchkey generation, right? We've heard
Mhm.
that term, where like we let ourselves in after school. And I do remember that. I remember that very acutely coming home, you know, when I was around like 9 or 10. My mother actually worked for the Department of Family and Children's Services. So it was like whatever age the law said I could be alone at home is when she extended her working hours to when after school. So I had my key and I got off the bus and I came home and I let myself in and watched Lassie or something, right? Like, and so what my client was saying is because our generation experienced that, and let's say theoretically a sense of being alone, not being attended to, and let's imagine that, like we talked about kind of last week, right? Like if there were some financial stressors that led both parents to need to be working, or they were just freaking tired at the end of the day from having worked full-time jobs or full slash part-time, three-quarter time, whatever it was, that there was less resources to give to us emotionally, right? And
Mm.
so then our generation grew up feeling maybe a little bit of lack of connection, lack of support, lack of attention or being attended to. And I mean, I tell Ellie all the time, like, we go to get our nails done, okay, every 3 weeks because I don't like messy nail polish. It's like totally like a cleanliness, like it's an OCD, like anal thing about me because I don't like it. I also don't like the meltdowns that come with messy nail polish. So we've been going to a salon to have them paint our nails and I pay them money so I don't have to deal with it. I never got that as a kid, man. Ever. Like I never had my nails painted ever. I watched my mom paint her own nails. I don't remember her going to a salon to get her nails done until like, I mean, I had been out of the house for a long time.
Yeah.
Long.
It wasn't
Um,
a thing, like nail
it was
salons on every corner, and no.
no, and it definitely, at least where I grew up, like we didn't have the disposable income. It was not. We didn't have extra. We had enough, but we didn't have extra.
Hmm.
Um, and so anyway, so fast forward, right? So then our generation, according to my client's theory, then says, I don't want my children to feel what I felt.
Mm.
Be lonely, not attended to, and not being able to get things, right? I mean, we've talked about this before too. Like I didn't have any name brand clothes. Like I remember like my grandmother took me to the outlets once a year and I thought that was so special. We had back to school shopping and I don't remember what happened between, but I remember, shoes were from Payless and um I literally don't ever remember new clothes or I mean I never went without, but I don't remember like ooh like Jordans and Lululemon. Like that was not a thing that was
Yeah.
accessible, right? So here
Yeah.
we are, and our children or our generation's children, right?
Mm.
Maybe are reaping is it a benefit or is it a curse of like our generation wanting to do the opposite, right? So let's imagine, let's say my client's 50, so she could theoretically have a child that would be 25-ish, right? And this is kind of that age where we're seeing, or people are talking about, oh, the younger generation getting out of college, getting into the
Mhm.
workforce. They're so entitled, right? And her theory is they've been too coddled because we did too much because we didn't want them to feel what we felt, but we took it too far in the opposite direction. And we kind of did the helicopter parenting, just they get everything, like you said, the trophies for every participation, and so forth.
Mm. I mean, I think there could be some truth to that, right? Like, even if you think about a generation, so maybe those a little bit older than this client, right?
Hmm.
Their kids maybe are like 30 now, right? But
Hmm.
if you had a really generation where things were super like strict and intense and like cutthroat, then you can see where that could breed this like, I felt like shit half of my childhood. I think every kid should get a trophy because I remember how left out I felt. Like, I think there's probably some validity to that. I mean, I see that pattern in a lot of areas of life, right? Where we maybe over course correct based on our own experiences or as a society where we were at,
Right.
right? We have these like giant like pendulum swings. So the next generation, like maybe our kids will get it right. They're going to hit the sweet spot, right? I don't know. Maybe they won't. But yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to that.
Well, and I think that that could account for some of what you saw at the moving up ceremony, right? It's like if people, you and I are in our 40s, right? If we're like irritated, right? And my daughter hears us talk about these kind of things, right? Like if she, and I have been so purposeful about instilling gratitude as one of her primary values.
Mm,
And I make her say thank you when we go to the nail salon. And if she's like snarky about something, and say, "Oh, what was that? Like, thank you so much, mommy, for taking me to get my nails done." It's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. I do appreciate it. I am grateful, mom," because she knows I'm gonna knock her into next week if she's not grateful, right? Gratitude, like above all else. Like you get a lot of things, man. But to your point, yes, I also tell her, like, well, mommy has to work, and that's, that's how we
yeah.
get the things that we are able to get, right? That's how we live in the house we have. That's how we get to go to dinner and buy groceries and
Yeah.
blah, 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 right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely a shift. Like I know, and some of it is also within like we're kind of generalizing a little bit over time frames, right? Because there's trends in various generations. I recognize that obviously not all families operate by this, right? Like some families may have been rocking this all along and just kind of doing their thing and not going by the trends that you see. But I mean, I agree. I think when I was a kid, like there wasn't talk about money. There
Mhm,
would be no's or we can't afford that, but I had no idea that my parents had a budget. Like,
mhm,
or that they were managing, you know what I mean? Like, I just got to know, like, if you can't have it, you can't have it, but there's no explanation as to why.
mhm,
And I feel like, well, part of it is I think my value around teaching my kids financial literacy, to be honest, but we have a lot of talks in our family about money, not because I want to stress my kids out or put any responsibility on them, because we always say, like, we got it, but you have to know things have value.
mhm.
Right? You want Lulu shorts. Okay, cool. I get everyone has them. I personally am not funding this habit.
Right,
Like, I don't value those shorts at that cost for you.
right.
Very true.
Mhm,
Okay. So, like, I don't buy my kids that. They can get them as gifts from family members who like to indulge.
mhm.
Or, Ansley has a little babysitting mother's helper job. She buys her
Right,
own. Like,
right.
you can go purchase those if you value them at X
Mhm.
amount of money.
Dollars. They're $70, dude.
For shorts, for a kid who's gonna wear them for like a day and then like sprout
Sure.
and never wear them
Yeah.
again. Yes, it's insane to me.
Mhm.
Right. But again, I mean, that's kind of the conversations we have. But that's me kind of course correcting what wasn't like I didn't have a concept of the cost of things really. It was just no, you can have it or yes, you can, but never like no, because that's insanely expensive,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do think and I do think that we kind of course correct and maybe we do swing it too far the other way.
It is interesting, right? And it'll be interesting, like you said, to see what our children do.
Yeah.
And
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 where it shows up, right?
Mhm.
Because you have entitlement around stuff.
Right.
Like I deserve those Lulu shorts because I'm your kid and you love me. And so you need to buy me like $70 shorts, right? And you can be entitled around accolades.
Mhm.
I deserve this because I work hard. I deserve this because whatever, right?
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
or you can have it around like achievements, right? And those are all different areas where I think it can manifest. Um, and it can be sneaky that way, like we have a lot of conversations in our house about Ansley wants to play soccer. She wants to get better, but she doesn't want to practice. Well, these kids that are playing like travel league soccer 7 days a week and giving up all aspects of their life for this are going to be better than you.
Right. Mhm.
But I want to get better. Then effort. Oh,
Right.
I don't want to give up my time. Then you stay, and that's fine. Like, right. There's no pressure to be like a star athlete, but
Mhm.
please understand
Mhm.
that when someone outplays you or is better than you, it is not because they got something, it's not because they didn't earn it, right? Like they put the effort in. And I do, some of that is also like developmentally a thing, right? Where you don't quite understand
Connection.
the connection between how much work you have to put into something. Or yes, you can be talented in an area, but there's someone better than you,
Right.
right? And I think some of that's exposure.
Yes.
It's like you were the top student in your class, and then the next year you got placed with another, like, super academic kid, and all of a sudden you don't have the best grade anymore. Right. And then you learn, oh, like, I'm not the best, or I do need to work harder, or someone just is better than me in this area or can outperform me. But some of that just happens as you kind of navigate through childhood based on like experiences you have, right?
I had several of those. That probably knocked me down too. It's probably part of why I would never feel like I was ever entitled for anything either. My
Yeah,
best
I like to coast right in the middle. I still do, right? Like I'm still happy in that, like, I don't need to be the top or the bottom. I just want to coast right here. I still operate that way.
friend
I'm
right
happy in my like sandwich,
in my sandwich. I'm the middle.
Because everything else, because pressure, right? Because the pressure mounts depending on your position in the bile.
That's right. We
Yeah.
had this show up in our office. This is a different context. This was really interesting. We had another professional, kind of an adjunctive professional, another helping professional, but not a mental health professional or physical wellness provider, but somewhat in the adjunctive helping sphere. And she was interested in utilizing our office space. And we historically have done an independent contract or like a percentage split. Well, inherent in that, right? A percentage, it's a stable percentage that ebbs and flows based on how much or your income, right? And what's
Mhm.
paid out and what's taken home. The percentage is always stable. And our percentage, interestingly enough, we've run wellness clinics for 13 years and it has always been the same. And what people take home is based on how much they work, right? The more you, the more clients you serve or patients you serve, the more sessions you have, the more money you make. Well, this particular provider was like, I don't like this percentage split. I'd like to make more money. Well, wouldn't we all, right?
Well, and let me
And I said,
explain to people who aren't familiar with the percentage split, because that percentage goes to you guys to fund admin, rent, utilities. Like she's not paying rent to use your space, right? It's a
right,
split so in lieu of rent,
lieu of rent. That's right.
it's a percentage you guys keep of what she makes
Yeah.
off of clients to pay for the overhead that you guys carry for her. So it's not
And
just, yeah.
right, we live in a very, very pricey area. Like our overhead is not cheap. This is office space is hard to come by, and it's expensive, man. It's so expensive to work in this town. The overhead is just so high.
Mm.
And yeah, it's it's rent, it's utilities, it's marketing, it's clean office cleaning, it's insurances. It's like it's a lot of stuff that's covered, right? But as a new professional coming into a new town, new office, well, I want to pay you less. Well, okay, but like our landlord isn't going to cut our rent because you want to pay us less, right?
Yeah.
That kind of entitlement, right? And my husband's been practicing for almost like 30 years now, right? And I've been practicing for 17. And it's like for a new clinician to come in and say, well, I want for you to change all of your practice structure and you essentially pay for more so I can pay for less, right? That's the entitlement. That's the
Mm.
special treatment. It's like it doesn't matter what the other clinicians across, in the office are making. Doesn't matter what the overhead cost you, Katie and Rob, right? That the landlord's not going to flex like because this new clinician. Okay, hey Andy, we just got somebody who wants to make more money. Is it okay if you can just cut our rent some? No, he doesn't care, right? Like he doesn't care. He doesn't care if it's a holiday. He doesn't care if my husband gets called for jury duty. Our rent is our rent, regardless of what happens. And this new clinician coming in and saying, well, I'd like for you to take a smaller percentage so I can take home more. With
I mean, I get the desire. I get it, but like,
okay, well, I should market, or maybe I should raise my rent. I mean, excuse me, raise my rates, right? So if I want to make more money, how can I make more money, right? That's where the entitlement comes in. It's like this special treatment that's not earned, right? My thought process is if I want to make more money, what can I do?
Yeah.
Right? I would
Yeah.
never call my landlord and say, "Hey, man, could you reduce my rent? I'd like to take home a little bit more." Like my
I mean,
brain doesn't even go there.
I would argue it's worth a I mean, you listen, I hear what you're saying, but like worth a shot to ask. I think the difference is like, what's your approach to it? Right?
Yeah.
To say like, hey, I'm just starting out. Is there any wiggle room on this? Because what I think younger generations are better at than we were, because I was like you, I got a job. I didn't question what I was paid. I just did my job and busted my ass for whatever crap they were going to pay me. Right.
Mhm.
I will tell you this younger generation is a little more savvy at that, and they will shoot their shot for a larger paycheck. I
Right.
think it depends on how you do that, right? To say like, I'm just starting out. Is there any wiggle room on the thing? No. Okay. And now it's my choice whether I take your offer or whether I leave it. But I don't really fault them for asking because I think that's a skill that this younger generation has. Maybe because of entitlement, right? But like I didn't even think to negotiate my pay for anything for a long time. Like I didn't feel again entitled to do that.
Mhm.
So
Earned. Like our thought process is that it's earned, right? We
yeah.
earn it. Like, and that's how I think, well, as entrepreneurs, we earn it, right? Based on our training, based on our longevity in the field, based on our like how good we are at what we do, right? Like no matter what your field is, right? That is how you earn more money. When our parents' generation who worked salaried positions, well, I'll speak for my family, right? My parents worked salaried positions, right? The way you made more money was either through tenure, right? Like your annual review, you could
Mhm.
get a bonus, or you got promoted to a higher like rank position and then you got more money with that, right? But
Yeah.
this concept of like asking for more money without the commensurate anything, that's I think where it's entitlement versus
Mm,
pride or go get itness, right?
yeah.
Like it would be one thing if she was with us for a year and she was like, "Hey guys, can we chat?" Right? Like I've been keeping track, and I've noticed that I've been able to refer X number of people to you over the years. I've gotten this exclusive contract with so and so to come into your clinic. This is how I've earned, right, my stripes. Climb
Yeah.
the ropes. We're doing with ropes. And so, would it be? I think that I would like to request this higher percentage split based on my contribution to the office.
Mm,
Oh, okay. Like, I see you. I like that, right? I would
yeah.
really respect that. Absolutely respect that.
Yeah. Well, and in this field, I actually feel like a percentage split is a fair way to go because there's other places that pay you a fixed income. So let's say they charge $100 a session, you're getting 25, 30. They're keeping the rest. So it's a 70-30 split, 30 to you, 70 to the company. Um, and those that do percentage splits will do like a 60-40, 70-30, whatever. But you actually end up making more as a practitioner doing that than the set fee. Because right to your point, you can raise the rate and get more
And
versus
ours is very generous. I've been told by almost every clinician who's come to our business besides this one.
yeah.
Everybody's like, really? I get what percent? Yes, that's yours.
But you know what? I mean, here's my thing, and this is my thought about it. Like, let that person go along their way and try to find a place to land that suits them. And again, this is where I think experience becomes the ultimate teacher because you're going to keep looking for places to land. You're either going to come up with this split or some pay by the hour thing, which is probably not what you were anticipating either, right? And, you know, you'll learn, you'll figure out what your value is. Because at some point, the environment gives you feedback one way or another. Someone's outdoing you, someone's doing better than you. You're not finding a job, nothing's meeting your requirements. Like now, at some point, you have to self reflect and be like, am I being realistic?
Mhm.
you know, um, that may take some time.
Grass isn't always greener.
It's not, but you have to figure that out.
But okay, so let's go back, right? The relationship between the parenting, here we are, two therapist moms and a mic, and right, this concept, right? Because theoretically, a 20 something who's launching, right?
Mhm.
Who might have that experience of, okay, maybe I asked for a little too much. Maybe I gotta like learn the hard way, right? Learn from my environment, learn from my behavior, experience the consequence of my choices. I turned down this private practice opportunity. I got to go work at this, like you said, a flat rate and paid less, right? But then, okay, how am I going to support myself in this town that costs so much with such a
Mm,
high overhead? Hello, mommy, right? And then we go back, right? Then it's the opportunity again to say, as a parent, honey, you got to figure this out, man. Right?
mm.
I'm not buying you Lululemon shorts. If you want to buy them, you work for them. How many babysitting hours do you need to pull to buy $70 shorts? Right?
Yeah.
Honey, you want to live in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida? You got to figure that out, man. I'm not paying for you. Or do mommy and daddy bail you out? And then the rescuing from the consequences, right? And this is a concept that we struggle with in parenting, regardless of the age. Is
Yeah.
like how rescuing children from consequences, like natural consequences of their choices, their behaviors, how is that influencing their ability to learn and then pivot and be shaped by their world?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think it's not, I don't know if it's an either or, right? Like either I overindulge and rescue or I let them hang themselves. Like I think there's a middle ground. And that's again that pendulum that swings so dramatically side to side. We forget that there's an entire range in the middle that we can hit, right? Like, yes, I asked my daughter to buy her own Lulu shorts or save it for a holiday when people are going to give her money or things, right? Because I want her to understand the value of that. Or do you even value it at all? Or you're just going to take it because I'll pay for it. But the second I ask you to buy something, it's not worth your money. It's worth my money, but not your money. We get into that debate a lot. Like, can you buy me this? No, you can buy it for yourself. I don't really want it, right? Because I'm challenging you to assess, right? But the middle ground is right. Starting when they're younger, how do we work with entitlement, right? How do we make sure that they understand that they have to put in effort? I remember I was doing like a lot of these play therapy trainings like forever ago, and one of the things we do is we in child-centered play therapy, it's you focus on the process, not the outcome. So we don't give praise, right? And if you read anything that Gary Landreth wrote, he will talk about not praising children, even in his work with parents, because the praise is like an empty accolade, right? So replacing praise with highlighting the effort. You worked so hard on that, right? I saw you really focused as you were creating that drawing. Not like when I was a kid, it's beautiful. And it was like this like hideous creation, right? But those little things, because what you're doing is you're shifting from this like sometimes a lie that we tell our kids when something's beautiful and we're like, what is that? We've all done it. Um, Shifting from either being inauthentic with our children or so, right, you're kind of like falsely praising them to focusing on, okay, can you focus on the effort and the process? Because that's where the work is at. And if we value that, that's where they put the emphasis. So you have now this little like 4-year-old that drew you a picture that you said you worked so hard on that, right? You didn't lie about how beautiful it is. You just noted the effort. You have that kid at 18, 19, 20, 25 who learns a value in effort and the process, not just, I want a job and I'm going to only pay you X amount to use your space and I want the rest. They'll say, right? That'll be the kid that looks at you and goes, okay, okay, I'll take that. And then in a year, after they worked really hard and proved themselves, maybe they'll try to like renegotiate with you at that point, right? But that's like small things we can do throughout our kids' lives that can shift where they land on this, like, I'm just entitled for the sake that I am, I'm special and they told me so, so that's what I should get, whatever I want. Um, I don't
Okay,
think
so
we have to be punitive though, or mean or harsh, right? It's just focusing on different things.
yes, okay, so focusing on the process, right? Encouragement versus praise, right? Is that was
Yeah.
what I remember, saying, right? Which is yes, you're working so hard on that. You're so proud of yourself, right? I'm proud of the work you're putting in, those types of things.
Mhm.
We've talked about
Allowing for struggle, right?
allowing people, right? Yes. Training for gratitude, training for financial literacy when it comes to financial entitlement. We've talked about not necessarily always giving the trophy, right? Like, and this is interesting because in some ways we could think of like the trophy as a way of praise, right? That like, okay,
Mhm.
Ansley, well, if you want to be an excellent soccer player, you have to practice, and you can't expect to be excellent without practice, right? So we're going to put in the work, and then you'll get some outcome, right? Or maybe not, right? You could put in the work and still
And
not get. And I took 8 years to
which
put
is,
piano lessons. I can't play a damn thing,
yeah,
you know.
that happens.
Sometimes you just don't get to your goal,
Right.
right? Um, yes. So encouraging the hard work, encouraging the process, encouraging self-sufficiency, I think
Mhm.
is related, right?
Yeah.
And I like the idea, the part of the definition of entitlement is special treatment, right? And so I really like the idea of also helping our children, you know, recognize, let me think of how to say this. If they are getting a privilege, right? Like going back to the nail salon example, right? My daughter was floored to realize that like I didn't get that. I never thought I was deprived as a kid. Like it was just not what anything we did. My mom had fingernail polish and fingernail polish remover and was always doing her toes. That was just what we did. And to hear, honey, I didn't get these things when I was a kid, right? We didn't have the money to do these things when I was a kid, right? Like this is something I'm grateful for now as an adult, and I want to be sure that you're grateful for this comparison almost, whether you're comparing yourself to, like, in this situation, like I'm encouraging Ellie to compare herself to me at the same age, or if we're comparing across, like other children may not have the things that you have, right? Alfred Adler talks a lot about social interest, right? And this idea that kind of the cure all to everything in his mind was comparison, right? Comparing ourselves to other people and being interested socially in, okay, wow, am I special? Am I not special? Right? Like I might have it really good here,
Mm.
right? I might should be grateful for this. And who else can I help? How can I dig in to help people less fortunate than me
Yeah.
too? And that's another topic. That's an amazing thing to consider. But so there's a lot of things we can do, right? There's a lot of things we can do as parents to try to find that middle ground where the pendulum is swinging.
Yeah. And again, some of it's developmentally appropriate just because of brain development, cognitive development. We can't, we're always a little bit at the mercy of that. But I think you're right. It's exposing your kids to different perspectives and different realities, and highlighting it when it comes out. It's I think most of it is just little things, right? A please and a thank you, an acknowledgement for an effort someone made for you. I
You
mean, even in our house, I think because in families it can easily be taken for granted, but like when my kids do something nice for each other, I'm always like, did you notice your sister went out of her way to like get you something from Starbucks when I took her and she insisted I bring you something back? Right? And then it's like, oh, thank you. Because they don't always go there themselves. Right? She didn't know. They didn't know what went on behind it. So sometimes it's like, I mean, spelling it out for your kids. Hey, someone just put in a lot of effort to help you, or that was really hard for them. Right? Or it's really hard for me to get somewhere and I will make it, but like, it's hard for me to be there. And, just to like let them know because they don't know, like, how do they know what effort people are putting in, or things just happen when you're a kid. I mean, I remember that, right? Like people just show up places and you just get picked up and like it all magically happens. Like you don't see all the things that go into it.
Don't you
Yeah.
wish it just happened for us now?
Yeah, I feel
I
entitled.
want the Publishers Clearinghouse checks to come to my front door.
Ooh, that would be fun. Yeah.
At
It is
least I can.
interesting. And again, I don't always think it's a bad thing. I think I do think the world has a way of checking most people's entitlement at some point, whether it's your first job, your first relationship, your first whatever, you know? But I think we can really give our kids an upper hand if we are mindful of it as we raise them so they don't have to hit a wall, face first at 25 years old and get a shock of their lives. Because I think it's really hard for some people to come to that realization that, oh, maybe I'm not so special for just being me.
Well, or you are, but right, because my mommy thinks I'm special just for being me, but that doesn't entitle me to different things. That doesn't entitle me to things that other people don't get.
Well,
Or that
or the reality that everybody is special in their own way. So now you are no longer special because like everyone is uniquely special.
mommy thinks they're special.
You're
That's
all
true.
special, so you're all even. Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have to work hard.
So we did not
Smart.
cure entitlement, but we gave some ideas.
Yep. There we go. That was our rant as 40 somethings. You can weigh in to see if you think that we're old people judging young people.
I don't think we sounded as crotchety as I thought we could,
Good.
right? No, I don't think so. Um,
No.
right. And why can we sit here and look back? It's because we've been through all of that.
Mhm.
Right. And you've been put in your place and you've had experiences where you weren't the best or outdone or things, you know what I mean? Like some of this is so like you have to grow into this, which is why I think it's older generations looking at younger saying you're so entitled. But I would argue that every generation looks at a younger generation and feels the same way.
Okay, well, I would be curious to know if market research bore that out. If we could look at, like, if we
Yes.
asked, what would it be? Like 65 and up, 70 and up? When our generation was when we were in our early to mid 20s. Or we'll just say 20 to 30s maybe. What do you think? 'Cause I know you mentioned
I
30s.
I don't even know. Just ask your parents. Did you think I was entitled when I was a teenager or in my early 20s? Right? They're probably gonna be like, sure did. Because again, developmentally, maybe there's a value in that. You don't know. You don't have the same perspective. So you're like, I did the things. I am special. I deserve all this. And then the world says, yeah, yeah, but you haven't actually proven yourself in any real world situations just yet. And you have to work your way up to where you want to go. But we're not teaching our kids that necessarily. That you have to start at the starting point and then you move up from there. So but I would argue, I don't know, I wonder, everyone go ask your parents if they thought you were entitled and see what they
Let's
say.
Well, and I'm going to be curious to know, yeah, yeah. Well, what were the circumstances also, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Like in what way were you showing that?
like I don't think I was. I don't think that my parents would say that I was. I think they would say, no, you always worked hard. I was always the one they had to say, you can put it down, right?
Hmm.
I, like I worked, I've always been a worker. I've always enjoyed working, whether it was schoolwork or, I mean, I had 3 jobs in high school, literally at the same time.
This
Not
is
because
interesting though, because I do feel like I had a thought process of entitlement, but I was a hard worker.
Yeah, so I'm surprised to hear you say that. As long as I've known you, I would never, if somebody said, blindfolded me and said, was Claudia Glassman entitled? I would say no, especially knowing, kind of your family background too. I would never have guessed that you would say that.
Else wrong with me? So interesting. Maybe I'm defining it for myself differently because I feel like my thought process was that of entitlement. I understood I needed to work hard. I was willing to do that. But in my head, I'm bitching about it every step of the way, going, I deserve better. Do you understand? So, like, I had a thought process of entitlement, but it didn't interfere with my ability to deal with the muck and to do the shit work and to like start low. but I always kind of felt like I can do more than this. I can do better than this. And like, I wish I wasn't here. I don't want to be here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I
You're
don't
just
know.
a shit.
Maybe those were goals and
You didn't hear me.
what'd you say? I was being a shit.
I'm a little shit.
Like my internal process was a little entitled.
You're a goal getter, man.
I mean, that's a nice reframe. I'll take it. But
Because
I
you work.
definitely had this air, right? Like I had this air of I deserve a better job. I am good enough for a better job. I can make, you know what I mean? But it didn't not do the shit job. I still did the crap. I just felt like I was, that sounds so bad.
Pay for more. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
So I do feel like I had a little bit of that, but not in like a, I won't do this because it's beneath me. I still did the things in my head. I was just like, it's beneath me. I should be doing different.
Well, and maybe, right? Maybe that's a differentiating factor, right? It's like, okay, I know I want to be here because I have the worth, right? I have the self esteem, I have the training, I have the aptitude, I have everything it takes. I was made to be here, but I'm going to start here. I'm going to work my way up, and I'm not going to complain about it unless it's to myself, to my best friend, to my mama, whatever, whoever wants to listen. But
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to, toil and toil and
Yeah.
toil.
Yeah. Like I feel like that was me, you know?
And I don't think that's entitlement. I think that is probably you're visionary.
I'm going to take your reframe and scratch the fact that I was entitled for anyone that listened this long. I am no longer entitled. I was a visionary.
There you go. You're welcome.
Thanks. I feel better already.
Okay, well, we should probably wrap up for
We're done.
today.
Yes. Yes. We're entitled to a long time of a lot of your time. All right. Well, that's it for today, everyone. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.